Hello, everyone. Want to thank the EasyPost team for having us out today. My name is Kleiser. I'm a client success manager with the Korber supply chain. And starting today, we're going to be going through some different parcel spend overview and different pieces with the data analytics and as well as carbon emissions. Previously, over the last two years, been working as an account analyst for the team, using this data on a daily basis within clients to provide them cost savings opportunities, and then as well as looking to remove and lower those carbon emissions with parcel shipments.
Yes, hello. My name is Jason Grisez. I'm a solution architect and account manager with Korber Supply Chain as well. Been with the company for a little over a few years here, 3 years or so, where I do a lot of solutioning here and various other PM roles, as well as the sales approach of the account management piece. Prior to joining, I was with another carrier company and the transportation network for a little over 2 decades, managing a lot of different enterprise companies and what have you too. Did a lot of solutioning and project management there as well.
All right. Well, where we want to start off today, we're going to start with just showing that basic visibility of what we're able to provide within our business intelligence tool. So one of the most important things, we're able to provide our clients, and when it comes to the start of a solution, is just having that visibility into the spend. So what we have here to start with is going to be our parcel spend overview. You can see up top, we have a list of different filters we're able to break things down for very quickly. So we have a list of carriers, we have a list of service levels, zones, different origin locations. And then within that, we have different KPIs and then different visuals set throughout the tool. So in this particular, we have, a look at total spend, cost per shipment, looking at on a year-over-year basis, cost per pound, pounds per shipment. Then as we start to look through this detail, we start to see things through as a cost per shipment. So this is set on a quarterly basis. So for each particular carrier that we have here, we're able to look at what that cost per spend is by carrier, when it is. We're also able to then bring this down on a week by week basis if we wanted to, but just really start to show the visibility and the trends that we have on a month over month basis. As we further go down, we start to have things such as cost per shipment, service over time. So we're looking at it from a service level basis. This really helps us pick out from the very beginning what kind of service levels we're using, what that cost per shipment is, what's the expedited shipment that we're using here. So we're able to really easily point out things such as next day AM, 2-day AM, 2-day, 3-day, express saver, all the way down across the board. So similar as before, as we look at this on a month over month basis, we're looking at it by trends and then just really giving that high level overview that then provides us the time to be able to further dive into that detail and start to understand your network, the pieces that you're using for your network, and the causes and cost savings opportunities we have for that. Similar to before, we're going to break everything out by a carrier spend at that point. So break out by carrier with total spend, number of shipments, what's that overall cost per shipment across the board, the cost per pound, pounds per shipment. These are all things that are definitely, metrics that we're able to create, things that we're able to very much customize when it comes to as that breakout. And then similar, looking at that utilization. So understanding which carriers are getting the most use at. This is going to be similar by total spend. So looking at it on a month over month basis, what's those changes? Where do we go with those? And how do we, look to make sure that the network is using that you want at that point in time? Then as we go a little bit further, we break down service level even more. So into those same pieces, total spend, number of shipments, cost per shipment, cost per pound, and then really most importantly, looking at that service level utilization over time. This is going to be able to break everything out for us. It's going to show us, like I said, those same expedited shipping pieces on a month over month. When we're looking at this from a carbon emission standpoint, we want to make sure we have those on a parcel world that are ground. So, we're literally able to understand what's the expedited, how much are we doing, and being able to dive in further into those details with each one here. Then most important as well, so as we look at it as a pounds per shipment, as a service level utilization, also understanding those zones. So how many of those high level zones do you have? Where are those shipping from? Where are those going to? So we also provide a high level breakout of that detail. So looking at, 8, 7, 6 here, being about 25+% of those shipments. And those are going to really provide us the opportunity to dive into those shipments, understand where they're coming from, and where those then, which we might want to ship today, we can get those closer to ground. So looking at those shipment origins and understanding where those are at. And then towards the very bottom here, we're looking at that dimensional weighting. So understanding exactly what are you providing them as the weight and what is that being dimmed out to. So then that way you're accurately able to portray and understand and ship the details that are coming through on a pounds per shipment across the board, month over month. Then to help you understand the times in transit and where we can, further get, to closer to shipping ground to all of these particular shipments, we start to look at shipper location, what zones they're shipping to, and then the transit days in between those times. So then we can, help you guys understand where your packages are shipping from, where they're going to further go to, and then where you can move things around when it comes to certain products to make sure they are within those zones 2, 3, and 4, and what those travel days would be at that point in time. So next, one of the things that we'll continue to go through will be those carbon emissions. So I want to hand it over to Jason as we start to go through those high-level overviews and show that piece of the puzzle here.
Thank you, Chris. This is some really cool information just to kind of talk about the evolution of what we've done here. We started out measuring carbon dioxide emissions, leveraging a little bit of the Green Freight Handbook that's published by the Environmental Defense Fund. We're able to take into consideration a lot of the different factors, a lot of different information that we're receiving in from invoices from the carriers. So we understand then the mode, so we can get the emissions factor as reported. Then we get the distance traveled, trying to understand that a little bit better. And then the other part of this equation is going to be the weight. So knowing the weight, receiving that detail, and then knowing then the emissions factor, or again, more specifically, the mode by which this traveled. The distance part is that key component, and just trying to understand how we're going to measure the distance. So we're using an API to understand that better. We ping the API to look at the origin to destination piece, and using that into the overall aggregate of our algorithm, we're able to build out then the emissions factor. So initially, as I mentioned, we were just looking at the carbon dioxide piece, but as we've taken and reinvested a lot of time and effort and resources into being able to build this thing and evolve it, now we're able to measure 3 specific gases for the carbon offset. So that's going to be the nitrous oxide, the carbon dioxide, and the methane gas piece. And this is all scope 3 emissions that we're able to take a look at. And so as building all this information out, we're able to put together really concise and really eye-catching type of analysis that we're able to bake into our business intelligence tool here as well. A lot of really cool information that you can see here on the screen that Chris is showing. And a lot of the eye-popping type of stuff is really going to be more of that, those KPIs you're looking at. So what we're seeing here is an executive level summary. So he's selected a particular time frame. He's clicked into the dashboard and understood a little bit to get a better sense for that particular time frame. But then there's some elements in here from the past 6 months as far as what those gases are. You can see here the CO2, nitrous oxide, and the methane gas being measured. Again, the CO2e. And then you see also then the shipments, number of shipments not using the most carbon efficient lane. As I've talked with a lot of different customers and folks that are interested in this particular solution, that one seems to be the real eye-catching one. That's where it takes the aggregate of the overall spend or the transportation profile to understand better, just kind of how are we performing as a company from our overall emissions. And so this particular KPI is able to measure that out. As you're taking a step back and you're looking at the elephant here, how do we start chipping away at this? This is where Chris and his team are really able to understand better the analytics of that transportation data, much like what he showed you in the previous dashboard, being able to carve out specific modes and specific transit times and even specific lanes to be able to say, okay, well, we can't have an immediate and direct impact on that 74.6% or 75%, but we can take little steps to start trying to carve back. There are opportunities where instead of using an air service level, maybe we can step back and use a ground service level. And in not just the ground service level, but are we getting similar transit time based on that? And if that's particular case, that's an immediate offset for the carbon emissions output from a mode by comparison of air to ground shipping. This particular dashboard here shows the carbon emissions and really just carving it up a little bit of a different way. So specifically, we're looking at the non-efficient mode of shipping from a parcel standpoint, then from a freight standpoint, and then from an expedited shipping standpoint. So again, using that type of information we're getting from those carriers, in the form of invoices, using then leaning into that environmental defense fund and the algorithm that we've built out, we're able to really look at some savvy analytics about how exactly the transportation profile fits within that particular shipper. So in this case, understanding more, even at the account number level, perhaps even as far down to the SKU level, we're able to understand more about what's that particular carbon emissions profile look like for any bit of information that we're receiving in from both upstream order execution data from the shipper themselves, or even downstream from the invoice perspective. Again, this kind of just highlights further what we're able to do as far as understanding better the profile of that particular shipper, looking at ways that we can start to peel back the layers of the onion, focusing on the bigger parts where we have the most substantial impact. This is also an opportunity to look at some of the financial gains out of this as well. I highlighted the opportunity to look at ways that we could scale back on using an air service level or an expedited service level when we can perhaps utilize a ground service level. And that may result in a similar transit time, both from the origin to destination to delivery time, or it could also mean just something where there is a customer that maybe selects, hey, I just want the most, I want the mode that minimizes the amount of carbon emissions output. Just something similar to where you would put that on a checkbox on your order form or other aspects of this, but giving that customer the control to understand more about maybe what that particular impact would be on the environment. If they understand that, and maybe they have a little bit of a decision bias toward that opportunity to offset those emissions, we understand better than what type of modes that we could offer for that shipper.
Yeah, and one of the very first things that we'll start to look at with that particular detail is going to be looking at those high service levels. So your next days, your 2 days, and then understand what zone those are going to at that point in time. So when we look at those particular details, we're looking at something that is a next day going to zone 2, and we're able to take the transit times details that we get from those invoices and be able to show to the clients that a zone 2 next day shipment is going to get there on an average time right as the same as ground at that point. A lot of that then is going to be what is the product, what time is that, product needed there. But those are all things we can start to work at. And so one of the things that we really see the most of is that next day, zones 2, zone 3, and then accurately be able to show that representation and that comparison between the two that then shows those transit times, which then you understand at that point, clients are not going to be affected by transit time because of this. You're going to be able to save on cost. And then as Jason mentioned, we'll see those carbon emissions drop down as well as that goes from a ground service than from an air service at that point.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool information. I mentioned that upstream order execution data from the order match standpoint. So we can match that particular data on a tracking number or BOL, for example. But just being able to report this information, not specific to just information detail we're getting from the invoice, but rather we can align it then to information you'd see upstream, such as a GL code or, for example, a node or a channel or a DC or something to that effect, where we could pull in that data at the order match level and then be able to report that information within this particular dashboard. This is a really, really, really cool tool that allows us to be able to be nimble about how we build out our analytics. Again, leveraging the information we get from the invoice, such as the origin destination pairing, the carrier allocation aspects, the zones, the weights, and obviously the cost then as well.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things that we have is when we look into this role as an account analyst, and what we're doing is the more data we have, the better. So when we're able to see things that are shipping from just the East Coast, but there's tons of shipments into California, but there's a West Coast DC that we can operate out of, we were able to show, hey, there's these 45,000 shipments that are shipping from New Jersey to California, but maybe they can ship out of Nevada, maybe they can ship out of Las Vegas at that point in time. To help. And so that will then really drop down. It's going to be a cost saving standpoint from being able to, ship ground for a, 2 to 3 day transit time out of, Nevada, compared to having to use a 2 day or 3 day service to get it there in 2 to 3 days instead of that 5 or 6 that you would normally get running ground there. So while there will be that transit from New Jersey to Reno or wherever it may be, there's going to be a lot of different pieces that we can do to help then utilize and get that optimization within the shipping network itself. So one last thing we want to show here when it comes to some of the details we can continue to get from the shipping here. So this is looking at a parcel package consolidation. So this is a breakout by shipper city to shipper lane, and looking at by week, how many shipments are they having in the parcel world across the board, and what that cost per shipment is. So, this is an opportunity where, we also bring in the service level, and we're looking to understand what, for this particular scenario from Roanoke to Dallas is, and then further take that down. And then maybe this is something that we look to as an LTL basis. So with this breakout with a Roanoke to Dallas, we have it by city, and that's what we're looking at here. We can also get down to the address level, but looking at just lanes, we then can filter down our next dashboard here into that particular lane. So what I'm able to do here is I'm able to add this to just look at Roanoke and Dallas shipments at that point. I'm then able to show by address exactly where the number of shipments are going. So for this particular scenario, we're looking at 99 shipments over the past 3 weeks that we have here. And so we're able to say, hey, this particular address in Dallas, you had 32 shipments, you had 60 shipments in these particular weeks. What can we do at that point to, further break those down and maybe ship them all on the same day? So one of the really nice things about the tool is we're able to go through this granularity. So not only can I go from ship date by week, I can then adjust this to be the day as well. So when I change this to day, we're going to be able to show the clients exactly the day that everything shook out. So looking at, hey, we had 21 shipments on the 13th, 11 shipments on the 14th. What could we have done to maybe ship all of those 32 on Friday or on Thursday via an LTL carrier at that point? Or what can we further do to, hey, if we don't need them on Thursday and Friday, we can ship everything out on Monday, and look at that same piece there between the entire week. So with that week, we see that breakout. It's very consistent from 7 to 8 to 13 shipments, 17 shipments per day. So what's the process of what can we do in, every Wednesday? Every Wednesday, we do that pickup and we do that delivery to this lane. Then instead of having to do parcel shipments over and over and over. So very similar thing, that's going to cut down cost on the overall number of parcel packages that are going out. And then looking into that LTL lane that will reduce the carbon emissions as we then have everything on one pallet, one truck at that point in time, instead of 92 shipments, 99 shipments across the board.
Yeah, Chris, that's a great call out. And I just want to highlight that it's an all modes global that we're able to do in terms of the reporting scheme that you're talking about here with respect to also the carbon emissions reporting. The other things that you can do too are maybe consolidating deliveries to Walgreens or to some other commercial address instead of the residential piece of this, where folks are more apt to be able to pick something up on their way home from work or a swing by here or there. So there's a lot of opportunity here where we can start to slim down the type of shipments or the number of shipments we're putting out there, particularly from a residential standpoint, but more so to consolidate your delivery type. I would add too that there's other opportunities for as far as the address verifications and just kind of cutting down on some of the other accessorial fees and what have you too. But while the endeavor is to cut cost, there may be opportunities to cut emissions, but then maybe you're in the other camp where you're looking to cut emissions. And by that, you can start to look at consolidation opportunities and thereby cutting some of your shipping costs too. The way that you tell this story, Chris, is great. You go through the analytics, you understand that the data is powerful. The more data, as you pointed out, Chris, too, the more data that we have access to, I think the better our analytics are going to be.
Absolutely.
Particularly around understanding the spend, understanding the overall transit and shipping profile, but then also what does this do in terms of measuring our impact on the environment?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys very much for having us. This has been great. We look forward to, further working more with showing these analytics. This is really just the very first layer of things that we can continue to get back to. What we love to do more than anything is continue to peel back further of the onion and understand at that point, where we can help, anyone from the carbon emissions to cost savings and saving money as well. So thank you guys very much for the time today.
Yeah, thank you. Take care. Thank you so much.